We've all heard it, that the whole point of meditation is to quiet the mind, right? To just stop thinking. But what if that's not the whole story? What if the path to real insight isn't about shutting your mind down, but actually about waking it up? Today, we're going to explore how to turn meditation from just sitting there passively into an active, dynamic investigation. And we're going to do it by learning the art of asking really good questions. Just so you know, everything we're talking about here is based on the teachings of Loon from a direct pointing session he gave. We're just trying to distill those core ideas and see how we can put them into practice ourselves. Okay, so let's tackle the big one right out of the gate. This idea that you're not supposed to think in meditation. I mean, it trips up almost everyone. You sit down, you try to get quiet, and you have this rule banging around in your head. Don't think, don't think. But what does that even mean? For most of us, it's just a recipe for getting completely tied up in knots. In that instruction, it creates a real dilemma. It basically forces your mind into one of two corners. And honestly, neither one is very helpful if you're trying to find genuine insight. So on one hand, you might try to force your mind to be silent. And what happens? You end up in this dull, kind of stagnant, almost dumb state where nothing is really happening. Or the other extreme, you just give up and get completely carried away by a storm of restless thoughts. You're just lost. Either way, you're stuck. And this really gets to the heart of the matter. You just can't make a blanket rule like no thinking. That completely misses the point. Because meditation, especially insight meditation, is an investigation. It's a deep inquiry. And, well, you can't investigate anything without using your mind. So if the goal isn't a totally blank mind, then what are we actually aiming for? Well, the answer is a very specific quality of mind. It's active, it's dynamic, and it's called discernment. This is the key right here. Discernment. It's not about random, chaotic thinking. Think of it more like a focused, intelligent curiosity. It's that active quality that leans in and really wants to see things more clearly. You could say it's the very engine of insight. And you can see this difference really clearly in various meditation practices. In what's called samatha, or calm abiding meditation, the goal is often a very quiet, still mind. It's a passive state. But for vipassana, or insight meditation, the goal is totally different. It requires an active, dynamic investigation into how things really are. And for that, discernment is absolutely essential. Okay, so how do we actually do this? How do we fire up that quality of discernment? Well, the main tool is actually incredibly simple and direct. It's all about skillful questioning. And the method is just beautiful in its simplicity. You don't bombard yourself with questions all the time. No, you use them strategically. First, you just notice when your mind has gone a bit flat or you feel like you've hit a wall. Then, you gently introduce a skillful question just to spark a little interest. And then, and this is the best part, you just watch. You observe the mechanism of the mind as it turns itself toward finding out more. But here's the thing, not all questions are created equal. Unhelpful questions are closed. They're demanding an answer, and they usually come from a place of frustration. Think about, ugh, why is this so boring? See, it just creates more tension. But helpful questions, they're open-ended. They invite exploration. Something like, how can I see this differently? It doesn't demand an answer, it just opens a door.
So let's try it. You can literally do this right now, wherever you are. Just gently ask yourself, what is the mind knowing now? Just introduce that thought. See what happens.
And you can follow it up. Is the mind interested right now? Is it a little dull? Maybe a bit confused? By simply asking, you're shining a light on the quality of your own awareness in this very moment. And that's it. That simple, gentle act of inquiry, that turn towards your own direct experience, that right there is the very beginning of discernment. It's not some complicated intellectual exercise. It's a fundamental shift from being a passive passenger to an active, curious explorer of your own mind. So once you get the hang of this tool, you can use it to investigate the very fabric of your reality. You can start looking at these big concepts we usually just take for granted, like space and time. Let's play with this for a second. Think of another country, a place you've been or just know about. Got it? Okay, now ask yourself, did your mind actually fly there? Did a little piece of you just zip across the globe, take a look, and then come back to report? I mean, it sounds kind of ridiculous when you put it that way, right? The insight here is pretty mind-bending. That country, the feeling of distance, the entire universe, it's not out there being seen by you in here. The whole show is happening in here, as a perception, as a thought, as a feeling.
Space and time are constructs, creations of the mind.
All right, so now we can take this same powerful tool of questioning and aim it at the most fundamental, most real concept of all, the self.
And so we ask it, the ultimate question, the one that's at the very core of this whole journey. Who am I?
And what happens when you genuinely ask that? The mind doesn't show you some solid, unchanging thing. No, it serves up stories. It gives you your history, your job title, your role as a son or a mother, your relationships, your greatest hits and your biggest failures. It just hands you a big bundle of concepts and memories.
And this leads to a pretty profound realization. The you that feels so real, so solid, it doesn't really exist on its own. It's a narrative. It's a story that the mind is constantly spinning. It's just a label we stick on this ever-changing flow of experience. And a story, well, a story isn't a solid thing at all. So, this is where we land. The practice isn't really about finding some final, concrete answer to everything. It's about learning how to ask better and better questions. Because if truth isn't something you go out and find, but something that reveals itself when you inquire skillfully, then the only question that really matters is, what will you ask next?